welcome to the Flightcast, a place where opinions aren't right or wrong, and where we can agree or disagree about movies, TV, and other assorted media, because it's all subjective. My name is Ray. Thank you so much for joining me. Hi! For the first episode. Is this the first episode of 2025? I think it is. It actually is. What was the last episode of the show that I did? The last episode of the main show that I did was December 17th. That was the set visit breakdown for Superman. And then a couple of days after that was a flight alert because the teaser trailer first dropped. But that was technically last year, December 2024. So, you know what? I don't care if it's 2 weeks later. Happy New Year to those of you celebrating, if you will. Hopefully your 2025 has gotten off to a rip-roaring start. I realize that we're all in very compromised positions to start the year. Many of us, especially if you happen to live in the United States. But we're not here to talk about that. We're not going to talk about that today. Today is going to be a rant episode. Yep, that's right. I am starting 2025 off with a nice, healthy rant because fans are being stupid. Again. Hey, what else is new? Seriously, water's wet, sky is blue, fans are dumb. Seriously, I'm going to get into that, and it's centered around this Andy Muschietti Flash situation, so buckle up. There's some inflammatory stuff headed here, but it's all PG-13. If you want to hear the not safe for work NC-17 version, you can definitely go to patreon.com/theflightcast and listen to that. I posted that yesterday. I think Wally and maybe a couple of others already listened to that. But before diving headfirst into this ridiculousness surrounding The Flash, always want to remind everybody, especially those of you who may be new to this show, that you can find it and all of my other shows at theflightcast.com or wherever you get your podcasts. And in this case, it could be Apple Podcasts, it could be YouTube on the Flightcast's own YouTube page, it could be on Spotify, it could be on Pandora. Yes, the Flightcast is available on all of those sources, that's right. Or maybe you use Overcast, which is a podcatching app that I've used for a number of years. I think Brent, my former podcast co-host over at Squadcast Media, tuned me onto that one. But you can find this show, the main show, you can find Flight Alert, whenever there's any new emergency news that comes up, like the Superman trailer, the teaser trailer that came out some weeks ago, or technically last year, if you will. Flight review, when I do movie reviews, I've got one that I'm going to be hopefully doing upcoming here for the new Section 31 movie that's coming out on Paramount Plus, because that's Star Trek, my favorite franchise in the world, so looking forward to that. Also, Flight Box, there were a bunch of Flight Box episodes that I wanted to do that I may still end up doing to post on Patreon with respect to some shows that I need to finish and get caught up on, like Creature Commandos and Skeleton Crew, and Star Trek Lower Decks Season 5. That last one I'm actually caught up on, so stay tuned for all of that. And yes, at some point in the not-too-distant future, for those of you very loyal listeners that have sent in feedback for Flight Chat, we will do a Flight Chat episode, and we will get caught up, and it will not take 4 hours. I promise you, it will not take 4 hours to get caught up on all of that. That's one of my resolutions this year, to be a lot more timely and a lot more expedient, not to ramble on like I have done so much in a lot of these episodes. But all that at theflightcast.com or wherever you get your podcasts. Again, Apple Podcasts, YouTube, Spotify, Pandora, available on all those platforms. And of course, I've mentioned patreon.com/theflightcast a couple of times already. Thank you so much to those of you loyal subscribers and followers of patreon.com, supporters, if you will, of patreon.com/theflightcast. Like I said, the NC-17 version of this rant that I'm about to launch into is available in an episode of Flight Speed that I posted yesterday on Patreon. If you want to hear the real explosive, language, if you will, because I got heated. This is a really heated subject for me, as you can tell. Those of you who have listened to this show long enough, you know how I feel about fandom and how stupid fans can be. So if you want to hear the absolutely uncensored version of this rant, go right over to patreon.com/theflightcast and check that out. Check out all the other content that is there, and stay tuned for more content upcoming. I know I keep saying that, but seriously, it is coming. I'm going to be launching into that. But thank you so much to those of you who are still very loyal supporters of patreon.com/theflightcast. All right, let's get into it, people. A couple of days ago, some quotations from one Mr. Andy Muschietti made the rounds across the DC fandom, and of course, triggered a lot of morons and a lot of stupid responses. And we're going to get into it right now. Now, which one should I choose to read from here? I got a Google search on Andy Muschietti on why The Flash failed, because that's the center of this. Which link should I click on to read? Should I click on Variety? Should I click on IGN? Should I click on Screen Rant, comicbookmovie.com, Bleeding Cool News? Hell no. World of Real? Hell No. And certainly not Cosmic Book News or Joe Blow. No. Let's go ahead and just go with Variety, right? I've had my issues with Variety, but they are one of the more reputable trades, if you will, right? This is an article written by Jack Dunn. The Flash director, Andy Muschietti, says the film flopped because it wasn't a movie that appealed to the four quadrants. It failed at that. All right. So this isn't a long article at all. It's just very matter of fact. The Flash director, Andy Muschietti, has his own thoughts, it says, as to why the $200 million tentpole was a box office dud. Released in 2023, The Flash grossed $271 million by the end of its run. It is not a small figure by any means, but considering the budget size and projected marketing costs, the article says, the DC blockbuster needed to double that figure to get out of the red. Muschietti said the reason The Flash couldn't recoup cost was because it failed to hit all four quadrants of moviegoer demographics. And this, I got to give Jack Dunn some credit. He actually lists the demographics. So men over 25, men under 25, women over 25, and women under 25. Despite Warner Brothers' best efforts, he says. I applaud him for that, because there's a lot of general audience people, and even people who claim to know what four-quadrant movies are that don't flip and know what four-quadrant movies are. And that was a very concise explanation. It says The Flash failed among all the other reasons because it wasn't a movie that appealed to four quadrants. It failed at that, Muschietti said on Radio 2's La Baulera del Coso show. When you spend $200 million making a movie, he says, Warner Brothers wants to bring even your grandmother to the theaters, end quote. Muschietti went on to say that behind closed doors, he found that people don't care about The Flash as much as other beloved DC icons like Batman or Superman. He noted this is especially true in the women under and over 25 demographics. Quote, I found in private conversations that a lot of people just don't care about The Flash as a character, Muschietti said, particularly the two female quadrants. All of that is just the wind going against the film, I've learned. Outside of box office woes, The Flash was plagued by lengthy delays and off-camera issues with star Ezra Miller. All right, so that's it for the Jack Dunn Variety piece. That's the entirety of it. Now, let me go ahead and click on the IGN link to see if there was anything extra, like actual information, like not, anything new that they had. No, it's just as, the only thing that it adds is this seemingly hasn't stopped DC from keeping Muschietti around. However, as he is reportedly set to direct The Brave and the Bold, the first Batman film in James Gunn and Peter Safran's new DC universe. This is by Ryan Dinsdale at IGN. IGN is I don't like IGN at all. I have many issues with their editorializing and their tribalism and their toxic nature, especially on social media. But it doesn't add any really new information whatsoever, right? Even this particular paragraph where it says Muschietti's mention of all the other reasons The Flash failed likely refer to its poor critical reception. That's false. Criticism of its reliance on computer-generated imagery, yes, there is that, including to recreate deceased actors without consulting their family. Oh, really? We're going there. Okay. And its placement towards the end of a now-defunct film universe and more. You know what's interesting about that paragraph, just to dissect that for a second? None of those are general audience concerns whatsoever. First of all, if we go to the hell site, that is RottenTomatoes.com. I will type it in now, and I have to type it in because I most certainly do not have it bookmarked, because screw Rotten Tomatoes. I don't like it as a site. It's the bane of all fandom's existence as far as I'm concerned. But if we go to the hell site, Rotten Tomatoes, oh, interesting. Failed critical reception. 63% fresh from the critics, 82% fresh from the audience. What are they talking about? What is this poor critical reception that Ryan Dinsdale is talking about? The mecca of critique sites, right? This is not critique, but criticism, if you will, because it certainly is not critique. But this is all we've heard, right? Rotten Tomatoes is the mecca. It's the Bible. It's what everybody should guide their movie-going experiences by. It has The Flash fresh. I mean, come on. This is significantly higher than Batman v Superman: Dawn of Justice, or Man of Steel, or Suicide Squad. Not The Suicide Squad, but Suicide Squad from David Ayer. Come on now. What are we talking about here? So no, the poor critical reception, false. That is a blatant lie. That is factually not the case in that regard. The criticism of reliance on computer-generated imagery, yes, that's a complaint from the fans. The whole recreating deceased actors without consulting their family, again, from the fans. Does the general audience really care that Christopher Reeve was brought back to life in the movie? No, not really. not the general audience that saw it. So that is a virtue signaling complaint from people, or performative, if you will, from fans that just want to hate on the movie. And then the placement towards the end of a now defunct film universe and more, that's okay. We all talked about that, about how with it being the DCEU farewell tour, that affected the final 4 films in the DCU that released in 2023 a lot more than we necessarily gave it credit for initially. Okay, so this is where the fan complaints begin, if you will. Now, here's the deal. Before diving into the real lunacy of the fan reaction to this, is there anybody listening to this show that really detected a lie or an untruth or a falsehood or a misrepresentation from Andy Muschietti? He said that it failed to hit all 4 quadrants of moviegoer demographics, right? He said that. Now, did he come up with that, or did the studio tell him that? More than likely the studio told him that, right? Market research and demographics probably told him, hey, it didn't hit this quadrant, it didn't hit that quadrant. Okay, so where's the lie with respect to that? I mean, it made $271 million. People did not go see it. So clearly it did not hit all 4 quadrants. If it had, it would have made more money. That's just data. Those are data points, right? This is factual stuff. Some of this is not subjective with respect to this in terms of what is being reported. So there's not a lie. That's not a lie at all that it didn't hit all 4 quadrants, clearly. And then, with respect to behind closed doors, people don't care about The Flash as much as other beloved DC icons like Batman or Superman. Noted that it is especially true in the women under 25 and over 25 demographics. Where's the lie there, guys? I mean, are we really trying to argue that The Flash is on the same level of popularity as Batman and Superman? Listen, here's the deal. For people who don't wish to accept this, we're going to go over this one more time. When it comes to superhero popularity, we have tiers, okay? I've mentioned many times what the God tier is of superhero popularity. I really don't need to repeat it, but I will for the purposes of this evisceration, if you will. Batman and Spider-Man, that is your God tier. Those two, no one, not a single superhero in existence eclipses either one of them in terms of global and generational popularity. It is Batman and Spider-Man. They rule the roost. They have generational appeal. They hit all 4 quadrants on a consistent basis when they release movies, period. Name one that has failed. Oh, Batman and Robin. Oh, okay. Out of all the movies that Batman has been in, as far as like a lead, right? Because don't count The Flash. He wasn't a lead in The Flash. As far as all of Batman's movies, as far as the lead, he doesn't fail, and neither does Spider-Man. That's the God tier. Tier 2 would be Superman. Sorry, Superman fans. That is not meant to be inflammatory. It's not meant to be insulting. Never is when I say it. It's just the truth. Superman is in Tier 2. He might lead off Tier 2 as far as popularity between Marvel and DC heroes. Wonder Woman is in that tier with him as well. Lots of Linda Carter fans and also the Gal Gadot fans. Those who, aren't angry that she's a Zionist, apparently. Whatever. Wolverine is in that second tier. Yes, most certainly he is. With respect to the Hugh Jackman popularity of the character alone, and then, yes, we can go back to X-Men, the animated series, if you wish. Wolverine is in that tier 2. And I also mentioned Iron Man, post-2008, not before the MCU. Before the MCU, Iron Man had 3 fans, probably, more than likely. He's got a bunch of fans now, thanks to RDJ and Marvel Studios and Kevin Feige and everybody else. So we'll put him in tier 2. There you go. Now, out of all those 6 heroes that I just named, Batman, Spider-Man, your God tier, and your tier 2 of Superman, Wonder Woman, Wolverine, and Iron Man post-2008. Is Flash on any of those levels as far as popularity? Be honest. Come on, people, seriously. Is the Flash as popular as any of those 6 heroes? No, he isn't. No, he's not. He most certainly is not. And that is not an insult to Barry Allen or, whoever plays Wally West, whoever plays the Flash. That is not an insult to the character of the Flash. It is simply pointing out that when it comes to popularity of superheroes, Batman and Superman eclipse him, and so does Spider-Man, and so does Wolverine, and so does Wonder Woman, and so does Iron Man post-2008, and a whole host of others that are more popular than the Flash at this point. So, again, where's the lie in what Andy Muschietti is saying? It wasn't a 4-quadrant film, and The Flash is not as popular as other, more popular DC heroes. Facts. Seriously, how is this disputed? How can we possibly dispute this? Well, I'll tell you exactly how the idiot fans decided to dispute this. First of all, let's go to The Flash popularity, right? This is what I've heard over the last 72 hours, the last 3 days or whatever, with respect to this argument. Now, all of a sudden, the CW Flash show is a darling. Oh my god, 9 seasons of success on the CW clearly means that he is a popular character. Andy Muschietti is deflecting responsibility. Okay, so let's just skip over the fact that so many of these fans trashed the CW for years. For years, had talked about how the Arrowverse was a disgrace to DC Comics, how the adaptations were bad. They complained up and down about how it was an ensemble cast, and Barry can't ever figure anything out without the help of his team back at Star Labs. He's smarter than that. He's supposed to be on his own. All of this laundry list of complaints and criticisms now thrown out the window conveniently so that you can make this argument that The Flash is so popular with the general audience because it was on the CW for 9 seasons. Well, let me remind you of one of the big pieces of information that we learned within the last couple of years, with the CW being sold off from CBS and Warner Brothers, both, getting out of their co-ownership and selling it off to Nexstar. Remember that article where we heard about how the CW hadn't turned a profit, wasn't making money, and how the Arrowverse shows were making their money based off of selling the digital rights to Netflix and other suitors internationally? That's how they made their money. That's why they kept going. That's why all the years that so many of the fans complained about the Nielsen ratings are always low, how do they keep renewing these horrible Arrowverse shows? Because they didn't have a full prime time, right? They didn't have full 3 hours. They didn't have an 11 o'clock. And their numbers were always lower because that wasn't where they made their hay. They made their hay in digital sales. And I said this years ago, and many of us pointed this out years ago. But now all of a sudden, you want to act like it was so incredibly popular and the general audience really latched onto it. Well, here's the deal, people. If the general audience really latched on to The Flash for all 9 seasons of its appearance in the CW, why didn't they go see the movie? If they really loved the character that much, why didn't they put their money where their mouth is and spend money on tickets to go see the movie? Because it wasn't Grant Gustin. It was that horrible trash of a human being, Ezra Miller. That's the next excuse. Ezra Miller, toxic enemy number 1. Now look, I'm not here to adjudicate all of that bullshit anymore. You want to feel however you feel about Ezra Miller and the situation that they went through. You want to continue to misgender them every time you bring them up in a conversation. That's your own bigoted business. And yes, you are absolutely a bigot if you continue to do so. It doesn't matter if you think that they are a horrible person or not. If you want to ignore all of the other reports and all the other exonerations that have come out, and Stephen Colbert over at Screen Rant wrote a really awesome piece a couple of years ago that broke down the timeline of everything that was going on. And that's not to completely exonerate all of Ezra's behavior, because they definitely have some issues. They definitely are an odd duck, if you will, to be honest with you, from a subjective point. Yeah, there's definitely some issues that they have to work on. But with respect to all of the really ugly, disgusting allegations that the court of public opinion threw at them, that's been proven to be bullshit, whether people want to accept that or not. But you want to make the case that the reason that the general audience didn't go see that movie was because of Ezra Miller. I will tell you right now, if I go out and ask 10 random people who the hell Ezra Miller is, we'll be lucky if 3 or 4 actually know who they are to this point. Seriously. This whole court of public opinion on Ezra Miller was waged on social media, and the general audience does not inhabit social media religiously the same way that many of us do. They still do not know who Ezra Miller is, and they, more than that, do not care who Ezra Miller is. So this sanctimony and this soapbox that you want to stand on with respect to Ezra Miller being this trash individual and they are what torpedoed the movie, that makes no sense. The general audience still largely does not know or care who Ezra Miller is whatsoever. And on top of that, you're telling me that because they would be so upset if they were really big fans of the Flash character, so they'd look at the movie and go, well, it's not Grant Gustin, I'm not going to go see it. Yeah, okay. That's how you feel as a fan. That's you living in your very concise, very picky, very gatekeepery fan brain. That's you only looking at your own perspective. You're not looking at the rest of the general audience, who basically looked at the situation and said, I'm not really interested in seeing that movie. I'll pass. Well, Ray, you don't know what you're talking about. It's very obvious that the general audience knew how much that movie sucked, and that's why they stayed away, because it's an absolute piece of trash. And that's the real issue that we have with Andy Muschietti, because he can't take responsibility and accountability for the fact that he made a shitty-ass movie. Really? A shitty-ass movie, which, number one, is subjective. That's your opinion. You most certainly are welcome to believe till your dying breath that The Flash is a shitty-ass movie. It's funny that all this happens right now, because I actually recently rewatched this movie for the first time, and rewatched for the first time, because obviously I saw it all the way through when it first came out, but that was the last time I had watched it all the way through. But a week or so ago, we were sitting at home, and Shonda was flipping through my digital library. She wanted to throw something on, and she said she had never seen the movie, so I was like, all right, hey, let's watch The Flash. And so it was her first time watching it. It was my second time watching it. She thought it was okay. Now, she's an Arrowverse watcher, right? But guess what? She never finished the show, because The Flash was not her favorite Arrowverse show. You know what her favorite Arrowverse show was? Arrow, The Godfather. And if we're really looking at popularity of Arrowverse shows in this regard, Arrow tops all of them, seriously. Like, that's not even a question. In its heyday of the Arrowverse, and I know this because Brent and I covered the Arrowverse through the majority of its life on DC TV Squadcast, Arrow was the top dog with respect to popularity of any of the DC TV shows. Not The Flash. Not The Flash, not Legends of Tomorrow, not even Black Lightning, not Superman and Lois, which did have an awesome 4 seasons that Scott and I just recently talked about over on DC TV Squadcast and Squadcast Media. No, The Flash was never the most popular show on that network. Not even close in that regard. So she never finished the show. She thought the movie was okay. But why didn't she go see it at the theater? Right? Why wasn't she interested to go see it? It wasn't because she was told the movie was bad, because I didn't tell her the movie was bad. She asked me what I thought of it when I saw it a couple of years ago, and I said I liked it. I really enjoyed the film, and I reiterated that I really enjoyed the film, because when we rewatched it, my feelings about the film actually were pretty strengthened. I think it has a whole lot of heart. I think it's actually one of the stronger movies in the DCEU, subjectively speaking. You're welcome to disagree with me as much as you like, but the fact of the matter is, she didn't not see it at the theater because she heard it was bad. She wasn't interested. Because you can't call a movie bad unless you've actually watched it. And this leads into one of the most idiotic debate points that movie fans love to bring up. This whole idea of a movie bombs because people know that it sucks. Bullshit. That is objectively incorrect. Because you can't know that a movie is bad unless you go see it. Well, of course you can't. Somebody on Blue Sky actually argued this next point that I'm about to bring up when I talked about this, and they're blocked now, obviously. But this individual came up with the argument of course you can know. Listen to the critics. Listen to your friends. They're the ones that tell you whether or not it's bad, and that's when you make the decision. You don't have enough time to watch. This bullshit excuse of you don't have enough time to watch all these movies, so you gotta rely on the brain and the perspective of somebody else to tell you how to think, to tell you whether a movie is good or bad. I wish I would allow some other human, I don't give a damn who it is, friend, family, coworker, I wish I would let some other asshole, whether I like them or not, decide whether or not I'm going to go see a movie, or decide whether or not I'm going to consider a movie good or bad. No, the reality of the situation is, if that's what you're relying on, if you're letting critics decide whether or not you're going to see a movie, or decide whether or not a movie is good or bad to you, then you are mindless. You are giving your brain power and the power of your emotions away to somebody else. You're letting somebody else control you. It's essentially mind control. It's agreeable. It's voluntary mind control at that point. And I have no interest in people that engage in voluntary mind control. So miss me with that bullshit about how you don't have time. No, you weren't interested in seeing the movie. It's fine to admit that. I don't understand the difficulty here. It can't simply be that the marketing was bad. It can't simply be that it didn't hit all 4 quadrants. It can't simply be that The Flash is a tier 3 or 4 popularity superhero, and the Batman and Superman and Wonder Woman and Wolverine and Iron Man post-2008 and Spider-Man are all ahead of him by leaps and bounds in terms of popularity, generationally even. It can't be that. It has to be, it was a terrible movie that you hated, that had an actor that you don't like, and it wasn't what you wanted them to do. It has to always come back to your selfish asses. Seriously, I'm not speaking directly to anybody listening to this show. I'm just saying, with respect to fan arguments, every fan argument boils down to selfish bullshit. It boils down to, they didn't do what I wanted them to. And that leads them to call it wrong, and that leads them to come up with all these rationalizations. And that's basically what the response to this Andy Muschietti story has been. It's been a bunch of loud gatekeepers screaming about how he made a bad movie and he should just admit it. They doubled and tripled down on Ezra Miller, a toxic situation, and that's what destroyed it. It's gone so far. It's gone so far that this article, I don't even know that I want to read. I'm not going to read this entire diatribe, but an article that was posted by Nicholas Ayala. You know what? I'm just going to read the headline. The headline is stupid enough. It says, after Andy Muschietti's recent comments about the Flash movie's failure, I'm concerned James Gunn picked the wrong director for the new Batman movie. Yes, and I saw this on Reddit, because yes, I am on Reddit now. I didn't go on Reddit to argue movies and talk about, subjective shit. I went on Reddit to, join groups that collect steelbooks and physical media, and then it just kind of spun in to other stuff. So yes, I'm totally on Reddit now. But at any rate, I saw people arguing this on Reddit, which is where I first saw the whole Andy Muschietti story. People saying, well, if he's going to pass the buck about the Flash, well then clearly he doesn't have the stones or the wherewithal to direct Batman, and I think he's a bad director. I think he should be fired. Listen very carefully, morons that are out there, if any of these toxic idiots are listening to this. First and foremost, there will not be a Batman Brave and the Bold movie if you assholes don't go see Superman on July 11th. Full stop. Number one. We cannot get past that. We have said this from the beginning. I will continue to reiterate this. If Superman does not succeed on July 11th, 2025, if it does not break the bank, if it is not a big, huge launching hit for the DCU, there will be no Brave and the Bold. There will be no Batman Brave and the Bold, period. So that power is in your hands with respect to whether or not that movie is even going to exist. But beyond that, you are so selfish. You are so arrogant. You are so much of a gatekeeper that you're going to sit here and go, since this director didn't personally apologize to me and apologize to the rest of us and kiss the ground that we walk on for making a Flash movie that we absolutely hated, I think he's a bad choice for the Brave and the Bold. No, you know what? He's the perfect choice, because you idiots need to be put in your place. Seriously. You do not rule these franchises. You do not rule the creativity of this. I've made this abundantly clear. You are 5 to 10% of the total audience if you are lucky. And unfortunately, I have to count myself in with you because you won't go away. It's a disease on social media to see this many people that give their minds over to critics, that give their minds over to bloggers, that put out all these lazy excuses and just, instead of just finding their own spine to say, you know what, he didn't make a movie that I liked, he didn't do what I wanted him to, and therefore I don't like him. Just say that. That would be more respectable than trying to come up with all these rationalizations and trying to actually attack the shit that the studio told him and the actual data in front of us. Because again, is anybody here going to argue to any one of us that the Flash is on the same level of popularity as a character as Batman or Superman? That's who he said. He didn't say the other names that I mentioned, right? Never mind Spider-Man, never mind Wonder Woman, never mind Iron Man post-2008, never mind Wolverine. Just the two names he mentioned. You're arguing to me, if you're somebody that's going to die on this hill of the Flash is a popular hero, then you're arguing to me and the rest of us that he's on the same level of popularity as Batman and Superman, because that's what Muschietti said on this radio show or this podcast or wherever, right? So that's your argument, that the Flash is as popular? No, he is not. I don't care how many episodes of the DCAU you've watched. I don't care how much you grew up with that Justice League and Justice League Unlimited or whatnot. No. We have objective data for this one. This one actually isn't subjective either in this case. Because if I go and talk to 10 people we'll bring this up. Anthony Dorsey, if you're listening to this, you may very well appreciate this. I'm bringing up the Williams theme stuff again, right? Because when we got into that whole debate, right? Remember all the gatekeepers that were all happy, all excited because they heard the Williams theme in the new Superman teaser trailer. And I've gone on record as saying I think that's bullshit. I think that David Cornsweet's Superman deserves his own theme. But Again, he is only the third cinematic incarnation of Superman that we are going to get since 1978. Batman, on the other hand, has had 7 since 1966. Yes, we're counting Adam West because, yes, that movie was released theatrically. And if I ask 10 people on the street to hum or sing the most famous or most iconic Batman theme, you know what most of them are going to say? You know what they're going to say. Na 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 Batman. Yes, exactly. Notice how that's not the Danny Elfman theme. Notice how that's not Hans Zimmer and James Newton Howard from the Dark Knight trilogy. Notice how that's not even Hans Zimmer from BVS. Notice how it's not Michael Giacchino's theme from the Batman, right? It's the Neil Hefti tune from Batman 66. That's arguably the most iconic Batman theme on the planet in history, right? But you would never argue that that would be used in Bale's movies or in Pattinson's movies or in Affleck's movies. Stay with me, because this is coming around full circle. Let's go to Spider-Man. If I ask 10 people to hum or sing Spider-Man's most famous theme, what are they going to say? Spider-Man, Spider-Man, does whatever a spider can. Oh, not Danny Elfman's theme from the Sam Raimi movies, not James Horner's theme, may he rest in peace, from the Amazing Spider-Man movies, not even Michael Giacchino's work from the John Watts trilogy in the MCU. Oh, that's funny. Interesting. Yeah, my point here is that those themes are iconic and stand the test of time, and they are generational. They transcend, right? Because both of those come from the 60s, right? Spider-Man cartoon was in the 60s and 70s, whenever it was. Batman 66, obviously, in the middle of the 60s, right? Those handed down, those make the impression on the general audience, right? Does The Flash have anything like that? Anything like that? No. No, he does not. So come on, guys. This argument about The Flash's popularity, it's just you being selfish. It's just you wanting it to be so. It's you rationalizing that you don't like that Andy Muschietti told you the truth. You don't like that there are actual factual reasons why The Flash bombed. Poor marketing, bad timing, not a 4-quadrant film, and The Flash just is not that popular of a hero. Why do you have to get butthurt about this? Why do you have to be children about this? Why do you have to be boring about this? And this is where I get to bring up a post from a fellow Blue Sky member that I used to be a mutual on Twitter, and then I lost him, when I ditched Twitter well over a year ago, almost 2 years ago, and went over to Threads. Pud333, he's on Blue Sky, and we have reconnected, and it's great to see him again. He posted this yesterday. He said, quote, "Fandom discussions are so boring now. I don't have the energy to reply to ignorance anymore because it's clear people choose to stay obtuse." Amen. That is precisely what we have here. People are choosing to stay obtuse about any of these fandom discussions. You don't want to hear what Andy Muschietti said. You don't care about the truth of what he told that radio show or that podcast, whatever it was. You just want to stay obtuse and sit in your own little world of why you think The Flash bombed. Because it sucked. Because you hated it. Because Ezra Miller is a horrible person. Because The Flash is more popular and they didn't do it right. All of that selfishness, all of that ridiculousness in your brain. Listen, you can live with all that delusion as long as you want. But the fact of the matter is, Andy Muschietti told the truth. Andy Muschietti gave you facts as to why that movie did not succeed, as to why it bombed. It has nothing to do with the critics, because as I said, Rotten Tomatoes, fresh with the critics and fresh with the audience. So that argument's destroyed with respect to that. And again, you cannot call a movie bad if you haven't seen it. Doesn't matter if you decide to trust critics. Doesn't matter if you decide to trust friends. But clearly, any critics or friends that would have actually seen the movie based on Rotten Tomatoes would have told the general audience, hey, no, it's a good movie. They still didn't go see it. Why didn't they still go see it? Because they weren't interested in it. Because The Flash isn't that popular of a hero. Because it doesn't hit all the quadrants. He, as a character, does not hit all the quadrants. Not like Batman, not like Spider-Man, not even like Superman, Wonder Woman, Wolverine, or Iron Man post-2008. That's the long and short of it. And you know what? You can either accept that as, logic, as a rational fan, or you can live in your world of delusion, and there are plenty of people delusional all over social media that just want to buy into the lies and buy into the bullshit and keep spreading the toxic, selfish ridiculousness because they can't possibly fathom that it's anything other than them being mad. Or their feelings are what matter the most. Oh my goodness. It's clearly what I think, not what the actual studio and data thinks. Yeah. Okay. You can go ahead and live in that delusional world as much as you like, but you're only making fandom look even worse and even more boring in that regard. And that's why I completely agree with what Pud333 says. Fandom discussions are boring now. And I don't have the energy to reply. I went to the IGN post on Blue Sky, and I saw so many moronic responses. And I did respond to a couple of them, and the idiots responded back, and it turned into a block session. And then I just decided to go through that whole thread, and I just went on a mass blocking spree. Because anybody that is going to posit these stupidly obtuse arguments about why, anything like this, I don't need to hear from them. I don't care to hear anything that they have to say. Because if you're just going to live in your own little world of fandom and act like it's all about what you think, and you're right, and everybody else is wrong, and when they actually bring hard... It wasn't like he brought opinion to it. He said that it didn't hit all four quadrants, and that behind closed doors, the Flash isn't that popular of a hero. That's not even behind closed doors. The Flash is not that popular of a hero. Unless, again, you want to argue that he's more popular or as popular as Batman and Superman. I defy someone to seriously make that case. Please, by all means, try and make the case that the Flash is as popular or even more popular than Batman and Superman, like he stated. Okay? But please tell me that. I am dying to hear that illogic, because it's not real. Okay? It just isn't real. I'm not trying to be mean here, but I am kind of trying to be mean because I just don't understand why fans have to be so lazy, why fans have to be so selfish, why fans have to be so ridiculously obtuse and toxic when it comes to these discussions. It's awful. It's ridiculous. And this is why we can't have nice things. Not at all whatsoever. But you know what? James Gunn knows what the score is. And he could give less than two shits about what any of these gatekeeping fans think. So write all the pieces you want about how Andy Muschietti is a terrible choice for the Brave and the Bold. It doesn't matter. James Gunn, if he wants him to still direct the movie, is going to keep him on that payroll to direct that film if and when that time comes, assuming that the DCU launches properly. Because one more time, there will not be a Batman Brave and the Bold film unless Superman succeeds on July 11th. Period. There is no ifs, ands, or buts about it. Because, especially with Matt Reeves' Batman Epic Crime Saga, that so many people are like, oh, we're going to be old by the time the second movie comes out. It's not going to line up properly. Yes, I understand that you're impatient. I get it. I'm not impatient. Because as a Batman fan, as I turn to look at my shelf of Batman physical media, I'm fine. I have nothing to complain about as a Batman fan. I really don't. Because I have lived like a pig in shit for decades with respect to Batman content. I am perfectly fine. I got the Dark Knight trilogy. I got the Burton films. I got the Schumacher films. I got Batman v Superman Dawn of Justice. I got Batman the Animated Series. I got Batman the Beyond. I have so much at my disposal in terms of Batman content. And of course, I have the Batman, right? Why am I in any type of rush for the Batman Part 2? Matt Reeves, do what you gotta do. Take your damn time. I don't give a shit. And I'm not buying into any of these rumors. Screw all of that. Nope. We're not doing that. Screw these rumors about who the villains are. Screw these rumors about whether or not he's going to be part of the DCU. No, he's not. I really don't see that being the case. It doesn't fit. We're not even 100% certain what the DCU tone is. We just have glimpses of it from the Superman teaser and from Creature Commandos. From anybody that has seen it already, I will see it and I will probably still say, no, the Batman's probably not going to be a part of it, whatever. But that's the point here, is that if Superman doesn't succeed in July, then Brave and the Bold need not exist at that point, and the DCU may as well just start all over and try a different direction, because they're still going to have successful Batman content with the Batman Epic Crime Saga in the Elseworlds category in that regard. So, whatever. Silliness. Ridiculous. People want to stay obtuse. That is their business. And you know what? It is my business and my right to call those assholes out, which I will, and delight in doing, because, oi, why can't we just have nice things? Why can't we just look forward to positivity with respect to stuff? Why do we always have to paint stuff in this selfish-ass, self-centered, egotistical, gatekeeping corner when it comes to reasons why something doesn't work out the way that we want it to? Whatever. It is what it is. The Flash is on my shelf, too. I enjoy that film. I do consider it a high watermark in the DCEU. Suck it. It's all subjective. Go argue with a wall if you really want to challenge that. I'm not interested in arguments about the subjective quality of that film. You want to hate it, you go ahead and hate it. But it is not the reason. The subjective quality of that movie is not the reason it bombed. Not by a long shot. Not at all. But you can go ahead and believe whatever you want if you're someone that chooses to believe that ridiculous bullshit. Anyway. That officially concludes my latest fandom rant, if you will, and that will do it for this particular episode of the Flightcast. Thank you so much for listening. Thank you so much for weathering my rants and listening to my dulcet tones, if you will, as I just completely unload on all of the dregs of our fan bases, the people that make all the rest of us rational, happy individuals look silly because they want to spout dumb shit on social media whenever something like this happens. If you have any thoughts with respect to this, and you want them to be shared and read on an eventual episode of Flight Chat that we are going to do and get through all the feedback with everybody, you know where to find me on Blue Sky at Flightcast. There's also the Flightcast Facebook page, and of course I can be reached by email at ray@theflightcast.com. We'll get through it. We'll figure it out. We'll get the feedback going again. I know that a number of you have been waiting for another episode before you send in more feedback. That is completely and utterly understandable. We will get that going again, but I would love to have a discussion with respect to this. With respect to the fandom, I'm not interested in adjudicating whether or not The Flash is good or not, because I do believe it's good, and I don't care if people think it's good or not. That's not really what I'm angling for here with the discussion. I'm just saying I would rather have a discussion with respect to fandoms always wishing to twist the words into their own narratives and always saying, well, he's just not taking accountability. It's really what we feel, and it's really what we're saying. The movie was awful, blah, blah, blah. That ridiculousness. It's more or less just an opportunity for us to potentially bitch about the dregs of fandom in that regard. So I look forward to that discussion, but until then, take care. Stay safe out there. Have a great new year, and I will see you all next time. Take it easy.